My punchline cascades from the following two questions. How can Lesotho and the world be saved from the resilient metaphysical or mental empire, the most dangerous form of empire founded on the paradigm of difference? An empire that kept its knee for over 500 years on the mental universe of over 90% of the world's population. The second question is, in the 21st century, how best can we translate the love thy neighbor commandment into real lived experiences for all who live under the sun? I propose that in order to address these two questions, we need to sing the hymn, "Seek ye first the knowledge kingdom, and all else will follow." I suggest that if the world, if Africa, if politics and the rest are epistemic creations, that is, entities that have been created by knowledge or through knowledge, it means that if we change the knowledge project, we will automatically change everything. Unless we change the geography and biography of knowledge, I submit that nothing will change. And here is what I'm trying to illustrate, to say, in his full life of 84 years, Moshoeshoe I was always seeking knowledge. We all know the dictum, knowledge is power. Without knowledge, Morena Moshoeshoe could not have achieved what he achieved. It was this paradigm of knowledge that saved Morena Moshoeshoe's kingdom from extinction. In his 2017 professorial inaugural lecture, Mutlatsi Taiwan belabored the point that, I quote, Moshoeshoe I made concessions on his sovereignty in order to save the nation, and the nation made concessions on its sovereignty in order to safeguard nation and nationhood, informed by a paradigm of knowledge which told him that insisting on sovereignty threatened the survival of nation and nationhood. Knowledge saved nationhood. The same knowledge must save Lesotho and the world today. I seek to argue that Moshoeshoeism is a philosophy of liberation dedicated to the rehumanization, remembering, re-education of previously dehumanized, dismembered, and miseducated human beings who continue to be at the receiving end of global coloniality. I therefore propose that we really need to read Moshoeshoe's life of struggle and survival in multiple and not two worlds, as Thompson would like to tell us, in multiple collider worlds, and his legacy as an embodiment of a paradigm of knowledge, love, peace, coexistence, truthfulness, justice, co-humanness, ethics of living together, and pluriversal humanism that is opposed to the paradigm of difference, racism, xenophobia, war, fortressing the world, criminalization of mobility, and racial and social profiling of human beings according to imagined ontological densities. It is on the basis of this that I chose to title this lecture, In Living Memory of Moshoeshoe I, the Decolonial Philosopher-King of Love, Peace, Coexistence, and Pluriversal Humanism. Madam Chair, the question is, what I ask you is, where shall I begin? I hear you say in Datemuriana, begin at the beginning and go on till you come to the end, then stop. In order to drive the point home, my beginning is a few short stories. I will start with two very personal stories because what is most personal is also most universal. My first beginning, one Sunday in October 2017. That Sunday in 2017, I happened to be in one primary school classroom in Maseru, the capital of the Kingdom of Lesotho. When I momentarily lost concentration on the task at hand, I found my eyes fixed on two beautifully hand-designed charts hanging by the wall of the classroom. The subject of the charts was primary and secondary colors, with explanations about what each color represents. Chair, my heart nearly popped out when I read where it stated that black represents death and mourning, and white represents peace, and purity. My second beginning. My second beginning is a recount of what happened to me about 17 years ago when I called at the office of the dean in one African university. Arriving in the Kingdom of Lesotho on Monday, 5th July 2004, on the morning of Tuesday, 6th July, I called at the office of the Dean of the Faculty of Humanities at the National University of Lesotho to be directed to the head of the Department of History, which I was going to join. I was attended to by a rather over-enthusiastic, over-informed, and exceedingly arrogant assistant registrar. When I told him that I was a new lecturer in the history department and that I wanted to see the head of the department, he replied rhetorically, "What have you come to teach? History. There is no history to teach here. Go back where you are coming from." My third beginning. My third beginning is a conversation between two American citizens, one black and one white. Referring to the disease that goes by the acronym AIDS, the white American asked Mr. Ash, "Mr. Ash, I guess this must be the heaviest burden you have ever had to bear, isn't it?" Mr. Ash, the black citizen, responded, "No, it isn't. Yes, AIDS is a burden, but isn't the heaviest burden I have had to bear." "Is there something worse?" the white citizen asked. "You are not going to believe this," replied Mr. Ash, "but being black is the greatest burden I have had to bear." This idea of blackness resonates with what W.E.B. Du Bois calls, "How does it feel to be a problem?" As you can see, ladies and gentlemen, these stories are deeply disturbing, but they have one common denominator of showing us the resilient epistemic empire, despising being black and aspiring to be white, and to see black people as both a burden and a problem to themselves and to the world. There are those troubling questions which arise from what I have already said, and I don't want to repeat that, but I would take Hamid Dabash's question, which sums up my long winding questions, which goes, how did Europe universalize its particularities, particularized other people's universalities, and made itself normative to others' abnormativity? I submit that all this is grounded in what we call the paradigm of difference, which has its roots into Christopher Columbus's first voyage of 1893, assisted later on by Pope Alexander I. When Columbus arrived in America, in the New World, in what is called the New World, people who came to greet him, this is how he described the people who came to greet him. "All I saw were youth, none more than 30 years of age. They are very well made. Their hair is short and coarse, almost like the hairs of a horse's tail. They should be good servants, and I believe they would easily be made Christians, as it appeared to me that they had no religion." Ladies and gentlemen, this is the genesis of the beginning of the social classification of human species and their racial hierarchization according to their ontological densities. Light-skinned being put into the zone of being, dark-skinned being put into the zone of non-being, as Fanon and Lovgachen would tell us, cascading into what we call the specter of difference, mediated by all those various notions of me, you, self, other, us, them, inside, outside, Christian, pagan, developed, underdeveloped, and the like. In 2006, I took a group of students, 57 of them, to Cape Town for an educational trip. We had booked a professor of history in advance to give us a survey of the history of Cape Town. And this is how he began his story. 400 years ago, this was empty land. Again, ladies and gentlemen, this speaks to this whole idea of, the paradigm of difference and the paradigm of discovery. One professor at the University of Zimbabwe, in his inaugural lecture, had to tell the audience, modern writers seem to forget that the natural origins were originally defined with white immigrants in mind and not African people of the country. The paradigm of discovery then led to the division of the world at the time between Spain and Portugal, with that dividing line, which is yellow or purple, depending on how you see it. I am colorblind. To the east belonged lands of Portugal, and to the west belonged lands of Spain. But this led to a dispute, which then brought Britain, France, and the rest into competition. And of course, as we all know, leading to the partition of Africa later on, almost 400 years down the line. I have already alluded to the Christopher Columbus line.